What's up, faithful? It's another episode of the 49ers Web Zone No Huddle podcast. I am joined, as always, by the legendary Al Sacco, and we are very excited to have our guest host here today with us to break down not only the Cardinals game, but just the 49ers in general, of the 49 Carats podcast, of the Bully Ball podcast on the Gold Standard Network. We have the one, the only, Steph Sanchez. Steph, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. I'm really excited.
Absolutely.
Steph,
The pleasure is ours.
Steph, I'm excited to have you on. So we really like to have other content creators who we respect and we think are doing a great job come and co-host with us. And I think you've been absolutely killing it. We wanted to get you on here and talk some Niners with you. But I got to ask you, for the fans who may not be familiar with you yet, talk a little bit about you. And I mean, you got to be a certain kind of crazy to want to do this. Like us, I think. I don't know. We're nuts somehow to want to keep doing this and keep coming back for whatever reason. But how did you get started? What made you want to start doing content?
It never would have really crossed my mind before. I was mostly just like a fan. I did run like a 49ers fan account like back in the day, like maybe 10 plus years ago. I did like the 49ers Hub. So if you're familiar with Twitter and 49ers Hub on Twitter, like I started that. But then it became too much, right? Like for the reasons you say, you got to be some kind of crazy. It does take up a lot of time to create content and be on Twitter all day. I'm still on Twitter all day, so I don't know what I'm talking about. But, now, I kind of just was starting to consume it more than I was like creating it for a while.
Yeah.
And then Javier Vega, you guys probably know if you're on Twitter. Yeah. Javi's the man. So he started like a website. It was called 49ers Gold Mine. And, he recruited a few other people who, maybe were just starting out or maybe just had like a presence on, 49ers Twitter at the time. And so I guess I was one of those people that he, felt would be good to start a podcast. And so it was me, and it was Angie, and Angie's now with NBC, so
Angie.
she's writing there. Yeah, that's awesome. And so we started that podcast, 49 Carats, and then really I knew nothing about podcasting, and I honestly thought I was terrible at it to start. I feel like I've I've gotten better at it with time. So that's not something I shy away from saying. I'm pretty open and saying like, man, I don't think I'm that good, but
I actually don't think I'm good either. So don't feel bad. I thought I was a good writer, but I with the podcast stuff, it's never really felt natural for me.
Yeah, like I call myself like a recovering introvert. So like I'm kind of shy,
Awesome.
and I'm not often the person that's like talking a whole lot, but like I guess like over time, like I've gotten used to it. So it's good. But yeah, no, people don't understand how much work goes into creating content and doing these podcasts and all this stuff and running a YouTube. Like it's so much work. I don't think I knew how much work it was like going into it. Had I known, I don't know if I would have done it, but like now that I do it, like it is fun. And, I feel like I've met a lot of great 49er fans and other great content creators such as you guys. And, it's been an awesome experience for me. So happy to do it.
Yeah, that 49ers gold mine, it was you guys, it was you and Angie with 49 Carats. It was Splash cousin Jordan Elliott, who's now with Angie at NBC, or what is it? NBC Sports Bay Area.
Yeah.
Aponte, who you do Bully Ball podcast with. So Avi definitely had an eye for talent, that's for sure. And he wasn't wrong with you. So again, thank you for joining us and really kind of breaking down this Cardinals game coming up. And, honestly, what I appreciate is if you guys don't follow Steph, make sure you do at Steph49K on Twitter, because she puts out lots and lots of good nuggets. And that's one of the things that I've seen this week is you've kind of highlighted a lot of things that 49er fans should be looking for in this contest. And it's an interesting matchup because this is a team that everybody, let's be perfectly honest, everybody shit on this team heading into the season. And to be perfectly honest, probably rightfully so. Not a lot of talent on the team. that Jonathan Gannon video of meeting the players for the first time was all sorts of levels of cringe, Michael Scott levels of cringe, if we're being perfectly honest. And there just wasn't a lot to expect. And then they go out and they beat the Dallas Cowboys in week 3 against, all odds, if you will. And so honestly, I think it was probably the best thing for the 49ers because it probably made them sit up and take notice. And what could have been a trap game looking to that week 5 matchup against the Cowboys now all of a sudden becomes more of an important game for them. And granted, it is a division game, so I don't know that they would have overlooked it too much. But what? Let's start with the offensive side of the ball. What is it that you're looking for when the 49ers have the ball?
For one, I'm going to be looking to see if Deebo's out there, right? I mean, as it stands, we're recording this Thursday afternoon, and it looked like he didn't practice today. So I'm going to be, I don't know if I'll say concerned, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on in this game if he's not out there. Other guys are going to need to step up, right? I'm looking at George Kittle, and I'm looking at Brandon Ayuk, who's coming off a game that he didn't play on Thursday night. So I do actually think this could be a big game for both of those guys. And, funny enough, we've seen both of those guys have big games against Arizona before. Each of them had 2 touchdown games against Arizona last year. Kittle had 2 touchdowns in both games. So I think, he's had some great matchups with them in the past. And I'm also looking at Christian McCaffrey because I think with how the Cardinals have defended against the run so far, I think this could be a big game for Christian McCaffrey. They've allowed a running back to score a receiving touchdown in each of their first 3 games. And not only that, but they're 6th in yards allowed per game on the ground. So this could be a big game for him. And I think it should be, especially like if someone like Deebo's out, right? You're going to lean on someone like McCaffrey a little bit more. I actually do tend to believe that the Cardinals are better on offense than they are on defense, despite Gannon being right now a more, defensively minded coach. But I think that most of their talent right now is on the offensive side of the ball. So keep them off the field, sustain long drives. The best way to do that is, pound the ball.
Bodes well for my fantasy team.
Yeah.
Steph bringing the stats. I love it. I got all my notes here, and she's just rattling off the stuff I got in my notes. I love it. The 4 touchdowns, I was ready to go with that. It's good stuff, man. You're right with Kittle. Kittle had some big games against the Cardinals last year. And the Niners in both contests last year put up 38 on Arizona. It was 38-10 in week 11, which was the Mexico City game. Jimmy was 20-29 for 228 and 4 scores, and it was BA and Kittle caught both of those. And then in the last game of the season, they beat him 38-13. Purdy was 15-20 for $178 and three TDs, and Kittle had 2 of those. So they had a pretty easy time with the Cardinals last year. Steph, I'm naturally a pessimist. Like, I can find something wrong with everything, and I worry about a lot, and especially when it comes to my favorite teams, right? So with the Niners, I could always find a reason where this can go wrong or that can go wrong. And like you said, Deebo's out, and Juwan Jennings didn't practice today either. This year is the complete opposite for me. I am more positive about this team than I think I ever have. I think they're absolutely loaded. Most teams in the league, not all, but most teams, I think, have to play their A+ game for 4 quarters to beat the Niners. And you saw it with the Rams. I thought they played really well for most of the game, but eventually the Niners just wear you down. It's just, there's just not enough talent on the other side of the ball. How do you feel about the team this year so far? Do you feel like they're better than they've been? Because we've seen them struggle early in the season, and this could be a trap game in previous years. Do you still see that, or do you think that they're that good this year where maybe they're just too good to fall into the trap?
Well, they're 3-0, and they've scored 30 points in each of their games, right? So I'd say things are going pretty well, but at the same time, I'd also say I think this is their slow start. Like, honestly, like if you watch what they're doing and you see what they were doing at the end of last season when they went on that big run, I don't think they're quite there yet. And I think Kyle Shanahan's, shared the same sentiment when he spoke with the media earlier this week. And also when they went 3-0 and beat the Giants, a lot of the players were kind of saying the same thing. Like, we feel like we could be better. We felt like we left points on the field. All those things are true, right? So despite them on paper, doing all these things and looking as good as they have, they could be even better. So I do have like a very positive outlook for this team right now. And I do think they're gonna hit a stride where they're going to be really, really tough to beat if all other things go well too. I'm looking at health so far. Health has been great. Gonna knock on wood, but it's been great so far, and that's been a huge part of all this success thus far. But also I think Brock Purdy has been able to take this offense to another level that we haven't, really seen, when Jimmy Garoppolo was the quarterback, right? I think we're also seeing Kyle Shanahan trust a quarterback. And I don't think we've seen that really since he's been the head coach in San Francisco. So I think all of those are really great developments, and there's plenty of reason to feel very optimistic about the direction of this team. And I don't blame Jed York one bit for getting those contract extensions done before the season even started.
We talked about slow starts. I saw this stat on Twitter. Some guy named Al Sacco tweeted it out earlier today that
Nice.
This weekend, the
follow him.
49ers can become the first team since the 2012. Now, Al's tweet says 2012, 2023, but I know what he meant was 2013. 2012, 2013 Broncos to score 30-plus points in 7 consecutive regular season games. Even with Deebo out, especially if Ayuk comes back, and even if Jennings is out, we saw what Ronnie Bell did in replacement of Ayuk. I just don't see how this team doesn't score 30 points again. And I know it's wild to think, but I mean, outside of the Dallas defense, which got absolutely torched on the ground against the Cardinals last weekend, but I don't see many defenses who will be able to hold this team under 30 points. This team can hold themselves under 30 points, but I don't see many other teams doing it. And, Brandon Ayuk will be back even if Deebo is out. Brandon Ayuk is the second highest graded receiver thus far this season on PFF, behind only Tyreek Hill at 91.4, which is an absolute elite grade. And, again, a testament to Ayuk's first 2 games. Even if Deebo is out, I think Ayuk can absolutely feast against this Cardinals defense. And not only that, but another thing that I thought was interesting, we talked about him earlier, our buddy Javi. Javi tweeted out a PFF. It was like PFF does this graphic where you can it's almost like an alignment, right? And you just put the players, the starters on each team. And the Cardinals have a starter at linebacker. And it's because they run kind of that 3-4 hybrid. It's the strong inside linebacker. But his current grade right now in coverage is 21.4. I think that's a guy that Kyle Shanahan has circled. And I would imagine Christian McCaffrey is absolutely going to eat that dude's lunch. So again, another way that this 49ers team is, it's just you're outclassing your opponents when you step off the bus with the roster that they put together. And just like Al and just like you, I just can't help but be incredibly, incredibly positive about this team and about their prospects for the season. And we say this every time with this team, health permitting.
Yeah. I'll just say one thing. Like, PFF is weird because, like, yeah, he's on there, but I looked at like his profile on PFF, and he only started that week 1 game. As I understand, I think he hasn't been practicing, so I don't know if he's even going to play. Whether maybe the guy behind him is worse, maybe he's slightly better, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, definitely, I think Kyle, in any case, was watching that game against the Cowboys big time, because your next 2 opponents in one game, great. Like, let's kill 2 birds with 1 stone. No pun intended, right? But yeah, I think Kyle's definitely looking at those matchups, and let's not forget, like, on defense, a lot of what they're doing is the same things he had prepared for the NFC Championship game, because Gannon running pretty much the same kind of scheme. So, and we never really got to see what Kyle was going to cook up in that game because Brock Purdy, went out of the game so early. So I really do feel like there's some unexercised demons for Kyle Shanahan in this one that he's going to try to exercise. Him and Brock, I think, are going to, try to finish what they had started in that game in a way. And we'll see what they had planned. I think they'll have a good game plan on offense. And one thing that people like brought up to me, not to segue into the defense, but I just mentioned this, like Steve Wilkes had a lawsuit against the Cardinals as well, so he has maybe a bit of a chip on his shoulder going into this one too. I think there's extra juice, not just the fact that the Cardinals just beat the Cowboys, and obviously like you can't sleepwalk into this game, but there's some extra juice in this matchup on both sides of the ball for the 49ers that I think bodes well for their chances winning this game.
And the Cardinals.
Kyle going to try. As I say, is Kyle going to try and match his buddy Mike and put up 70 this weekend? How awesome would that be?
Man, that group chat, they probably have a group chat like that. That group chat was probably lit after that game. Like, oh my
absolute
God.
Fire.
So I want to go back to what you said about Purdy, though, Stephanie, because you mentioned the trust that Kyle has in him, and part of the reason he trusts him is the way that he plays with poise. And some of the numbers that stuck out to me recently that I looked at, his QB rating right now is 106.3, which is fourth in the NFL. His QBR is 78.8, which is second. Only 2 was higher. He obviously is tied for the league lead in interception percentage because he hasn't thrown one yet. So that's 0. Yards per attempt is 8.1. That's second. And yards per completion is 12.1, which is third. Those are high-end numbers. And we saw how much the Giants blitzed him. And we saw how he started out a little rough, but then he adjusted to it. And you can just see, I was watching Dan Orlovsky today, and he was talking about warm reads versus hot reads. So when it's warm and Purdy just has to kind of slide a little bit, he knows enough to feel the rush and just slide to the left and make the throw. When he's got to make a hot read, he knows just to get rid of that he needs to get rid of the ball. He's just very smart, and he's wise beyond his years. And it's one of the reasons why the Niners, they have a 13-game winning streak right now. It's the second longest in franchise history. They won 15 games in a row from week 12 of 1989 through week 10 of 1990. So Kyle is just calling games and approaching games and being aggressive in a way that we haven't seen because, like you said, he trusts his quarterback. And I don't know how many people are watching what's going on in Oakland right now, or in Las Vegas. But if you see the way Jimmy Garoppolo is playing, 6 interceptions already. Throwing the ball over the middle and getting picked, kind of just chucking the ball off his back foot. These are reasons that Kyle sort of held what he wanted to do on offense back because he was afraid of those things. And you can see now the way he's calling games, he's not afraid anymore.
Yeah.
Mike, I would say you can tell Josh McDaniels does not trust Jimmy Garoppolo based on the fact that he kicked a field goal down 8 with less than 3 minutes left in the game. You're like, you couldn't scream, I don't trust you more than making that decision.
Yeah. And people, people were fans of Garoppolo and people would jump to his defense. And he's certainly, again, he's not one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. He's a starting quarterback in the league. I do believe that. But he was limiting to this offense. And I think if you see the way that the offense is running now and the fact that they're just going 30, 30, 30, and yes, McCaffrey has a lot to do with it. I understand that. But so does the quarterback play. And I just think it's made all the difference in the world so far.
Yeah, I agree. It has raised the ceiling of this offense because I think he looks at the offense like the same way that Kyle does. And I think they understand what's going on out there like very similarly. And I think that's all like Kyle really felt he needed, right? And yeah, I think we are seeing the differences between both of those guys. Like as far as like limitations go, maybe they are similar in that aspect, but I would say that the reason that Brock Purdy is able to raise the bar just a little bit more is because he's so much smarter. And like, that's no slight to Jimmy, but I think what we've seen so far is that his football IQ is so high. Like you were just mentioning, like the blitz and knowing when you're hot and being able to get the ball out. Not only like, is he getting the ball out because sure, any quarterback can just chuck it up and like, pray to the gods that it lands to your receiver's hands. He knows where he's going with the football when he gets out of it. So when he gets it off so quickly, he knows where guys are going to be. It's not just like a one read and throw kind of thing. He goes through his progressions. He's looking downfield. And so it's a accumulation, I think, of all these little things that he does better than Jimmy Garoppolo that I think have been able to just raise the ceiling of this offense as high as it has. I mean, we can't ignore the fact that having a guy like Christian McCaffrey also helps in this equation, like it certainly does, and all these playmakers. But I still like that doesn't take away anything of what Brock has been doing, and I think he's just going to continue to get better because we gotta remember he hasn't even played like double digit games yet. Like, how many games has he played so far? Like, I'm like trying to count. Man, I'm not
I think he's 9 regular season, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
9 regular season, 2 playoffs, and a
anyway,
3
so maybe
against,
so there you go. He is double digits, but still, like that's not a lot of time. And I think we saw right off the bat when he came off of the bench in that Miami game last season and he performed the way that he did. I think right away you knew, okay, this guy's gonna be all right. He's gonna be able to handle this. And also I think the biggest thing too is like he can learn on the fly. I think we saw him start slow in that game against the Giants. We've seen him start slow in other games too. I think about the game against the Raiders last year and against the Bucks as well. Slow starts for him, but he's able to change and make adjustments in game. You're not waiting till the Monday after the game to say like, all right, here's what you did wrong and you do this, you fix this next week. No, I truly think he's looking at everything that, the defense is doing in game and he's making those adjustments on the fly. So I think like that's another thing. And that's why despite being blitzed, nearly 80% or 85% of the time, whatever it was, Kyle Shanahan said, you're still going to throw the ball 37 times. Like that tells you just the trust that he has in Brock, that he's going to figure it out. And, I think it works for this team. So I'm excited to see what this offense is able to do for a full season with Brock leading the way.
Let's go ahead and transition over to the defensive side of the ball because it's a pretty awesome defense as well. And one of the things that I thought was interesting is a quote from Steve Wilkes came out. I don't know if it was yesterday or today, but the quote was, "This is the best defense that he has ever been a part of." And it's not just because they're ultra talented. He said there's a lot of teams or a lot of defenses that have a lot of talent in this league, but this defense in particular is such a stickler for the details that it's what makes this defense so good. And one of the things that I think is interesting is, this defense has let's call it a reputation for struggling with mobile quarterbacks or the quarterback run game. And, Jack Hammer, who we've had on before, tweeted today, and I thought this was really good insight. He said, this Cardinals game is going to be a bit of an insight into what it's going to be like when the 49ers play the Eagles later this year, in that the Cardinals have the same defensive structure and offensive philosophy that the Eagles have, which makes sense because Jonathan Gannon came from the Eagles after last year. And Josh Dobbs has done a bit of running. They've had some designed runs for him, and he's been ultra efficient when he throws the ball. One of the stats that I thought was interesting, and in fact, I saw the stat from you in a Mark Adams article on the 49ers web zone. He quoted you about how Dobbs is last in the NFL in pass attempts, but I believe he is third in efficiency rating or something along those lines. What do you think is going to be the key in defending? And this almost sounds like a joke, but what is going to be the key in defending this Josh Dobbs led Cardinals offense?
It's not a joke at all. Like they look good. Like he he's done a pretty good job. And so again, credit to Jonathan Gannon, and I don't know who their offensive coordinator is, but they're
That's
doing a
the
pretty
thing.
good job. Yeah. But they, again, like, they had the talent. They much of this talent was on the team last year, and Cliff Kingsbury, for whatever reason, couldn't really do anything with it. And so we're seeing now finally, like, they're playing to their talent level. But anyway, yeah, I think the key to stopping Joshua Dobbs is stopping James Conner. Like that, it's as simple as that. And like in all 3 games that they've played, they've had success running the football with James Conner. And so what is it going to look like when James Conner, isn't as effective running the football and Dobbs is going to be forced to throw? Well, so far when Dobbs has had to throw, he's had complementary football to work with, where the run being successful is opening things up for the pass, especially when they're running the zone read. And if that's successful, that's enough to make any defense hesitant. That's going to make other things easier. So really, like, the best thing that this defense could do is stop James Conner. And it's not even just James Conner. You have to stop Dobbs from running too. And you also have to stop Rondell Moore, who they're now deploying out of the backfield too. And he's a speedster. He burned the Cowboys last week quite a bit. So it's going to be tough. It's more than just like one guy on offense that you have to account for and stopping the run. And also, I think it's going to take all 11 guys on defense for the 49ers to stop it, right? But if they can do that, it's going to be a good, like, domino effect, I think, in the 49ers defense's favor. On the other hand, if you're not able to stop the run and they're successful in that, it's going to be a domino effect in the opposite direction. It's going to favor the Cardinals. So that's the slippery slope here. And yeah, first and foremost, they have to stop Conner, and let's see what Dobbs can do when he's forced to throw the football a ton.
Before you jump in, Al, I was going to say, hold on. Before you jump in, Al, I looked it up. Drew Petzing is the offensive coordinator for the Arizona Cardinals.
Just going to say that. Yeah, I looked it up too.
Yeah. He was
never
with
heard
Cleveland.
Of that guy.
Right. I think this is his first time in the NFL calling plays, but he was the Browns quarterbacks coach last season. He was the tight ends coach in Cleveland before that. He spent a lot of time in Minnesota. But yeah, that is, again, who? But hey, kudos to him, because he's done a great job so far.
Who had that on the bingo card that we'd be talking about? The Niners had to stop the Drew Penzick offense in week 3 for the Cardinals. Right. I mean, who would have even thought that in a million years? And they're really close to being 3-0. They were up on the Giants, whatever it was, 28-0 or 21-0, and they blew that. They only lost to the Commanders 20-16, and then they have that upset with the Cowboys. Crazy to even think, because we thought this team was tanking and just trying to play for Caleb Williams, and they were going to maybe win 2 or 3 games the whole season, and for them to come out and play this way. And Steph, you were talking about that running game, and you look at the numbers. James Conner, 51 attempts for 266 yards. He is just a steady, he's probably the most, he's not exciting, but he's just a steady kind of guy. He just always gets the job done. And then Joshua Dobbs has 12 carries for 93 yards. That's 7.8 yards per attempt. And Rondale Moore, like you mentioned, 5 for 66. That's 13.2. So yeah, all they have to do is bust a couple of those big runs, and it could be a close game, maybe going into half. You never know. The ball bounces a certain way. The biggest thing with the Niners is they've only turned the ball over, once in 3 games. So I think as long as they can continue to do that, they're going to be in good shape. I still see Cardinals are a great story. They're going to win more games than we anticipated that they were going to this year. They're going to be a pesky team all season. Again, I just don't think the talent level is there to hang with the 49ers at home. And the 49ers coming off sort of a mini bye with that Thursday night game. They do have some injuries, but for the most part, the team's going to be rested. Bosa talked about he finally feels like he's in football shape now. He just mentioned that this week. So it's hard for me to I want to give the Cardinals their credit and their due, but it's hard for me to get too nervous about this game.
One of the things one of the things that I've liked with Steve Wilkes that he brought, right? Because one of the things that we talked about is, what is Steve Wilkes going to bring? And he has a lot of experience coaching secondary. So we thought, hey, maybe some of the coverages will change. He was very hands-on with the DBs in training camp. I know you were there at least a few times. The one time that I got to see a practice in training camp I saw him working with Mooney Ward one-on-one, Diamador Lenore one-on-one. So he does have his eye on that group. But one of the things that they've rolled out, and it has allowed the renaissance of Javon Kinlaw, and that is that 5 down lineman, or the 5-1 formation that he rolls out, especially on passing downs, where they have 5 defensive linemen, where it's Armstead, Kinlaw, and Hargrave on the interior, Jackson and Bosa on the edge. And I have to wonder if, again, a big part of this Cardinals offense is that zone read. It is the run game. They've run the ball. I believe, and I believe you tweeted this, Steph. They've run the ball in a higher percentage of plays than any other team in the NFL. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if they come out maybe with that 5 down set and just dare Josh Dobbs to beat them through the air. And if he proves that he can, then they might have to adjust, which Steve Wilkes has also shown a propensity to be good at with halftime adjustments, which I've appreciated because D'Amico was really elite at that as well. And so I think that's my biggest, that's what I'm going to be looking for this Sunday, especially on the defensive side of the ball, is does he employ that 5 down lineman look more, especially if they are looking to stuff the run, and whether that's successful or not. And if Javon Kinlaw continues to experience this renaissance that he's experienced, where I believe the only interior defensive lineman with more pressures than Javon Kinlaw is Javon Hargrave, his teammate. And there's one other player, and I can't remember who it is. It's not Chris Jones because he didn't play week 1. I can't remember who it is right now, but yeah, it's been exciting because, you want to root for guys like Kinlaw, right? Where he's just been injured, and that's been the biggest issue, is just his inability to stay healthy. For the first offseason in his career, he's been fully healthy, and now you're seeing dividends on the field. So kudos to Javon Kinlaw for that as well.
Yeah. And it's interesting you bring that up. Like, I do think it has been very successful, and I do want to see more of it. I just wonder, like, the one thing I've noticed is with Kinlaw, like, he's really only been there on the obvious passing downs. And so, like, they really have him in there as just like to get pressure on the quarterback. In this case, like, if you're going to have the threat of the run, like, you have to be on your toes about, like, all game, would that work? Because I mean, I think in the preseason we saw Kinlaw kind of getting pushed around in run defense, and so maybe that's why they have him just in primarily as a pass rusher. He has lost a lot of weight, because like that's another thing too to be mindful of. Like, I don't know if he has like the same body type to really be like a great run stuffer that he probably was drafted for before. And so really what's working is him being used as a pass rusher. But I did at first think maybe they were doing that a lot against the Giants to kind of seal off any running lanes, because, Daniel Jones, he's a threat to scramble. And if he saw any like hole open up, he would take it. Right. And so you kind of have that same threat with Dobbs as well. So one extra guy in there, there's less room to run, right? Especially when you have like Hargrave and Armstead too. All those guys can penetrate and create pressure. So, yeah, like, interesting. I don't know like if they'll really use it more in this game, just for that reason of like run, but like it is interesting. I guess that is one thing I'll keep an eye on as well. But yeah, we haven't really seen like a Steve Wilkes defense try to, I guess, on the 49ers with this personnel, stop like a mobile quarterback. I don't really think the Giants game was any type of preview of that. It didn't even look like the Giants and Jones were trying to run any zone reads. So we haven't seen it. So it'll be interesting to see how they try to defend it in this one.
Can you imagine being an offensive line and seeing those 5 dudes come out and line up across from you? That's gotta be.
That D line is just loaded. Loaded.
You're bringing your lunch pail.
So, guys, I do want to shout out to Christian McCaffrey, who won his 3rd offensive player of the month. He's tied with Derrick Henry for the most among active running backs, and he actually won it in December of 2022 with the Niners too. So that's basically 2 months in a row, right? Did they give one I don't even know if they gave one for January or not last year, but I feel like it's basically 2 months in a row. He's the second 49er to win the Offensive Player of the Month award multiple times, joining Steve Young, who won it 6 times. and he surpasses John Elway and Andrew Luck for the most ever from a Stanford player. So thanks to NFL Communications for that. But again, McCaffrey we were talking about it, I think it was last show, Steph. We were saying, do you remember when the Lakers traded for Chris Paul and the NBA was just like, no, you can't do that. Like, we kind of feel like the NFL would, if they could go back in time, they would just kind of be like, you guys can't do that. I saw something came up recently that ESPN gave the trade a C- when the Niners got McCaffrey, which I don't think I had seen. And I was reading it and they're like, they're going to regret this. It's probably the most comical thing I've ever read when you see like this guy was just a perfect fit for Kyle Shanahan. And if we could go back in time, I think the league would find a way to not make that happen.
I get like, the skepticism of some people who, gave that trade a poor grade. Like, Christian McCaffrey did struggle with like health in his career at some points. And, the 49ers always struggling with health themselves. So in that aspect, I understand. And they did give up a lot of picks for him. But you see what they're getting with him. And you see how well he fits in this offense. It makes a ton of sense, right? And I still pinch myself every so often because I'm like, wow, like Christian McCaffrey, he's really a 49er, right? Like I remember that draft and just like hoping that the 49ers would take him. Obviously they ultimately didn't, and now maybe it's for the better because like now he's at a point where this team is loaded and he gets to join it at, he's still at a good point in his career. And man, hopefully chase a ring, right? And hopefully get a ring. So he's been incredible. And I also want to mention that in this game, he has the opportunity to, get 2 franchise records. Think about that. Like he hasn't even been with the team that long and he's already like smashing some franchise records that Jerry Rice holds currently, the touchdown one, the consecutive touchdown one. And he's at 12 consecutive games with a touchdown right now. As that's the record that Jerry Rice currently he's tied with. He has one on Sunday and he owns that record. So that's incredible. And also the other one that Jerry Rice currently owns in the team's first 3 games. Jerry Rice in 1989, he had at least 100 scrimmage yards and a touchdown. Christian McCaffrey's also done that in the 49ers' first 3 games this season. So if he's able to do that for a 4th game on Sunday, he would own that record. So I think it's pretty incredible that going into this game, and I absolutely think he's capable of getting that record. Both of those on Sunday, like it's just incredible what he's been able to do for this team. With and for this team, like I'll say both. I think both have been really incredible.
Does he have a touchdown in every game that he's started with the 49ers?
I'd have to look. It's got to be close.
Yeah, it's got to be close because like for him to like have 12 consecutive games, and that is including the postseason.
It's got to be close. Have to look, but it would have to be close. All right, you guys, what are we thinking for final scores here? What do we got for predictions?
So I'm thinking that, the 49ers have been scoring 30 points in every one of their games. It's pretty incredible on its own, having the same exact score of 3 straight games. But we also acknowledge that there's still some room for improvement. So I think they fix at least some of their red zone woes a little bit in this one. I'm going to give them 34. Okay. I'm going to give them 34 and I'm going to give the Cardinals 16.
I want to do 2 things here. One, also got to draw attention to our boy Jake Moody, the best 3rd round pick in NFL history. Whoa. 3 for 3 on field goals in every game that he's played so far. 3 for 3 in point after attempts. I'm going to say that he's going to get 3 field goals again, but I'm also going to say that the 49ers know they've left meat on the bone. Again, I think this is Kyle Shanahan saying to Jonathan Gannon, see, I would have kicked your ass if my quarterback did not get injured. And so I'm going to say that they add an additional touchdown to what they've done the previous 3 weeks. And so I'm going to say that this score is going to be the 49ers 37 and the Cardinals. I'm going to give the Cardinals 20, 37-20.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same. They're going to score 30 something, right? 33, 34. I'm kind of think it'll be around there. And I'll say the Cardinals get 17. I think it's going to be a pretty easy win for them. It may be close early, but again, the Niners are just going to be too much for them. So I think it's going to be another easy game. And then it's going to be 4-0 going into the huge showdown with the Cowboys, which is a game I can't wait for.
Sunday night,
it's just going to be a gigantic Sunday night game. So before we get out of here, I do want to thank everybody. So August was the second most downloads we've ever had in the history of the show. So I want to say thank you to everybody for downloading the show and listening to the show. And if you're listening and you haven't subscribed, please do that. And like I said, even if you think we suck, subscribe and see what stupid shit we're going to say next, and just keep listening. So we just really appreciate you guys. Steph, really appreciate the time you were awesome today. Tell everybody where they can find you.
Yeah, pretty much on every, major social platform. I am Steph 49K. That is Steph with a PH and 49K. TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, all of them. I said Instagram already. All those Steph 49K. So, and I have my own podcast, as you guys mentioned, 49 Carats podcast. Upload shows or do live streams on YouTube. And you could also find that on wherever you stream your platforms. Wherever you stream your podcast. See, I'm not great at this, guys. I told you guys, I'm not good at this.
No worries. Hey, listen, also, if you're listening right now, follow Steph on social media, if for no other reason than for her absolute fire Nick Bosa impression videos, because those are fantastic.
Yeah. I've been begged to do more. I'm just like, I don't want to joke,
Yeah, we won't make you do it now. We won't ask you to do it now. Just put up a good one. I was hoping you were going to, because I watched them too. I think they're really funny. I was hoping you were going to do one with the contract stuff. I had some ideas. I'll shoot you ideas for skits.
I did a couple. Shoot me some. Actually, sometimes I'm like, I don't know what to do, and then people do send me ideas, and I'm like, all right, yeah, that's a great idea. I'll do it.
Yeah, it's good. It's really good. All right, we're out of here. For Steph and Brian, I'm Al.
Later.
Thank you guys.